Everyone in the city knew Ethan Vale, the billionaire nobody could get close to, cold. Calculated. Brilliant, the man who built an empire but trusted absolutely no one. So when he walked into a tiny, quiet cafe for a supposed blind date, people thought nothing of it, but then the woman across from him, a gentle-eyed single mom wiping her hands on her apron, looked up at him with confusion and whispered the words that shattered him. Were you in on this joke? The hurt in her voice, the shaking in her hands, the humiliation she was trying to hide. Ethan froze, because he wasn't part of the joke at all, but discovering who was, and why, would change both of their lives forever. This is where everything began. Ethan Vale was a billionaire who avoided relationships like people avoided storms that he had lost trust years ago after being used, lied to, cheated, and photographed more times than he could count. So when his business partner, Adrian, insisted he needed to meet someone real for once, Ethan reluctantly agreed to a blind date, just one dinner that he expected a gold digger. A social climber, someone who knew his surname and saw dollar signs, but what he found was her, Lila Sanders. A single mom working 2 jobs, hair tied in a messy ponytail, clothes simple but clean, eyes tired but kind. She looked at him like she was afraid to believe he was real. I think there's been a mistake, she murmured, cheeks warm with embarrassment, but they Saturday awkwardly at first. Then she said, almost hesitantly, my babysitter cancelled. So I left my daughter with my neighbor. I'm sorry if this is weird. I wasn't expecting. She looked at him, really looked, well, you. Ethan softened that he wasn't used to people not expecting him. What made you agree to a blind date? He asked. She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. My friend said it was time I tried meeting someone again. She said the guy was sweet, humble, and uncomplicated. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That description clearly wasn't about him, but before he could ask more, before he could admit that he wasn't supposed to be uncomplicated, the cafe door burst open. A group of young men rushed in, phones out, laughing. There he is, one shouted. Dude, Lila actually showed up. She thought this was real. Ethan turned cold. Lila paled instantly. One of the boys cackled. Single mom meets billionaire, what a plot twist. This is going viral. Lila's face crumpled, humiliation, betrayal, hurt stabbing through her like knives. She looked at Ethan, trembling. Were you in on it? The words cut deeper than she could know. Ethan stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. No, he said, voice like steel, I had nothing to do with this. But she didn't believe him. She whispered, I knew it was too good to be true, and rushed out of the cafe in tears. Ethan looked at the boys, furious, then he walked out too, because he wasn't letting her leave like that. Ethan found her outside behind the cafe, wiping tears off her face with shaking hands. He approached slowly. Lila, he said gently, I'm sorry. Truly. She sniffed, embarrassed. You don't have to pretend. Those boys, one of them is my coworker's son. They planned this. And I walked straight into it like an idiot. You're not an idiot, Ethan said softly, but she hugged herself tightly, as if protecting her heart. I should have known someone like you wouldn't be interested in someone like me, she whispered. I'm just a single mom trying to survive. The pain in her voice hit him harder than any insult he'd ever received. Look at me, he said. She didn't. So he stepped closer. Please, Lila. Look at me. Finally, she lifted her tear-filled eyes to his. I wasn't in on that joke, he said, would never do something like that. Someone played both of us. She swallowed. I don't know who would want to hurt me. Ethan did, because the boys weren't filming Lila, they were filming him. Someone had set him up, someone who wanted to humiliate him publicly through her pain, and Ethan Vale didn't let people hurt him, or innocent single mothers. For sport he took out his phone. I'm going to find out who did this, he said, voice dark with controlled fury, and when I do, I'll make sure they regret ever trying. Lila looked startled by his intensity. No, please don't start trouble because of me. He softened immediately at her fear. I'm not starting trouble, he said, I'm ending it. Then, unexpectedly, her daughter's name lit up her phone screen. Mommy? Are you coming home? The tiny voice echoed. Lila closed her eyes. I'm on my way, baby. When the call ended, Ethan said quietly, let me walk you home. She hesitated, then nodded, and that small, fragile trust was the beginning of everything. Lila lived in a tiny apartment in a quiet, aging building. The hallway smelled of laundry detergent and crayons. When her neighbor opened the door and let them in, Ethan froze. A little girl ran up to Lila and hugged her tight. "Mommy, I made you a picture." She held up a drawing, a stick figure mom with a smile, and a second figure beside her. A tall one. "Ethan," Lila blushed instantly. I'm sorry. She draws everything she sees." Ethan knelt down, unexpectedly gentle. "Can I see?" he asked the little girl. She beamed. "This is you. You have superhero hair." Lila covered her face, mortified. Ethan laughed softly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya." She giggled. He smiled. "Maya, I love your drawing." The little girl ran off to show her neighbor something. Lila exhaled shakily. "She's all I have," she whispered. "I wasn't supposed to have anyone help me raise her." Ethan looked around the small apartment, books stacked neatly, cheap toys repaired with tape, warm light, love everywhere. "It's small," Lila said quickly, embarrassed, "but it's ours." "It's perfect," Ethan said, and he meant it. He had mansions, private islands. A penthouse with walls made of glass, but none of those places felt like this tiny, warm room. Then Lila asked the question he hadn't expected. "Why are you really here? Why didn't you just leave after the joke?" He looked into her eyes. "Because you deserve better," he said, "and because something tells me this wasn't an accident." Lila frowned. "You think someone planned this?" "I know they did." And Ethan was going to find out who. The next day, Ethan had already pulled the cafe security footage. The boys didn't plan the prank alone, someone paid them. A familiar face, Adrian, his business partner, his supposed friend. The man who insisted Ethan needed a blind date. When Ethan confronted him, Adrian shrugged. It was just a joke, he smirked. You needed to loosen up. Besides, she's no one. Ethan stepped so close Adrian stumbled back. Don't you ever say that about her again, he growled. You humiliated a woman who did nothing wrong. A mother. Adrian scoffed. You're actually defending her? A waitress? Ethan's voice turned ice cold. She's more genuine than anyone I've ever met. And you used her. He ended the partnership that day, but he wasn't done. That evening, he returned to Lila's apartment. She opened the door cautiously. Ethan? What are you doing here? I found out the truth, he said, and I came to apologize properly. He explained everything. Her eyes softened, not fully trusting yet, but no longer guarded. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, she whispered. You didn't deserve it. Neither did you, he said. Silence filled the space. Maya peeked from behind her mother. Are you having dinner with us? She asked innocently. Lila blushed. Maya. But Ethan smiled. If your mom says yes, he said gently. Lila hesitated, then she opened the door wider. Yes, she said softly. You can join us. And as Ethan stepped inside, warmth, laughter, and a new kind of hope embraced him. For the first time in years he wasn't being used. He wasn't being filmed. He wasn't being judged. He was simply welcome, and in that tiny apartment, with two hearts who had suffered quietly for too long. Ethan finally understood. He hadn't been set up on a joke. He had been set up on a miracle. And as she looked at him, truly looked, she realized he wasn't the man they tried to humiliate. He was the man who stayed, even after the laughter faded, the man who chose her, not the joke, the man who saw her worth long before she believed she had any. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the ruins of a cruel prank, two hearts found something rare, not perfection, but honesty, not fairy tale magic, but a second chance. And sometimes, that's the kind of love that lasts forever. True character is revealed. Not in comfort, but in moments of cruelty. When the world laughs at someone, the kind-hearted choose to stand beside them, not because they have to, but because they see their worth when others refuse to. Love isn't built on perfection, wealth, or flawless first meetings. It grows from honesty, compassion, and the courage to stay when things get difficult. The billionaire wasn't defined by his money, and the single mom wasn't defined by her struggles. They found each other because two broken moments can still create something whole. And in the end, the biggest lesson is simple: never judge someone by the joke others make of them, judge them by how they treat the person who's hurting.